right. Here we go. All right. So I didn't plan on doing this. Plan on doing anything today. It was all last minute because this was sent to me by somebody, and I figured it's be good to get this out. So, Infowars, of all people. Let's get rid of this. And let me get this up here. Let me mute this. All right. So, Infowars, of all people, decided to put out a documentary about the Vegas shooting. And to my understanding, this was today. Now, if you look what I got on there, it's kind of a pain in the ass to find this. Because interestingly enough, if you type in Infowars Las Vegas shooting on Google, everything comes up but Infowars. We got Politico, we got IMDb, we got New York Times, the Daily Beast, Newsweek, fucking 8 News Now, New York Daily News, everything but fucking Infowars. So it is a pain in the ass to find. In order to find it, you have to go to Infowars. You have to type in the little search here thing, Las Vegas shooting. I guess I could put the link down on here, which would probably work. Let me see if I can get this going. Because every time I try to do links, it always just screws up. Anyway, so let me share the screen. What I got going on here. Let's see. Again, this was totally not what I planned on doing today. Let's see. I believe this is the one. Again, if you want to find this, Infowars.com. Hit this little search thing. And normally, I'm not big on the Infowars or any of this stuff, but to me, it's interesting that they went through the trouble of actually putting this out. Oh. Hold on a sec. All right. Sorry about that. Getting text messages while I'm doing this. All right. So let's see if this pastes in here. I know YouTube is going to love me putting links of Infowars up in this thing, but it is what it is. Anyway, so to go over this, and again, I've only seen this briefly. I watched a couple of these videos for a couple of minutes. I didn't get through much of it. But Route 91 uncovering the cover-up of Vegas mass shooting censored by YouTube. And here we are on YouTube. January 14th. All right, so this is recent, 2022. So this is something fairly new, I guess, or at least updated new. 10 this morning. Let's see. Big tech censors don't want this film getting out. Okay, well, that is there itself is not the film. On October 1st, 2017, 58 people were killed at the Route 91 Country Music Concert in Las Vegas. And within 2 weeks, the media dropped the entire story due to all the lies and holes in the police and FBI official narrative. That fucking word. All right. This documentary exposes the things they've covered up about the tragedy they don't want you to know about. Mindy Robinson produced this documentary and has disclosed that YouTube is actively hiding the videos. Now, this first thing here is, I believe, the same as the second one. Like I said, I kind of went through it a little bit just so I kind of have an idea. Screenshot below shows search results appearing on YouTube when typing in the exact title of the documentary. All right, so they're claiming shadow ban. All right, and I believe it. Let's see. Check out more Las Vegas shooting content in the following reports. All right, so, and then yeah, be sure to join Alex Jones Infowars. Yeah, all that stuff. These bottom two videos are a little shorter, so I plan on playing those, and then the full documentary is over 2 hours long, so I'm not going to get through that whole thing tonight. I may jump on it a little bit, but again, I haven't really watched these. I just thought it was interesting.
Famously, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and that apparently applies to the Mandalay Bay shooting as much as anything else.
Within 2 hours of the Las Vegas massacre, authorities announced that 64-year-old Stephen Paddock had acted as the lone gunman, officially making it the deadliest mass shooting committed by an individual in the history of the United States. But 2 years later, there are still many questions with no answers. Videos from the event show no muzzle flash from Paddock's window on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. Photographs show that Paddock's windows were intact during the shooting.
No.
Police inside the room after the shooting said there was no broken window. After the shooting, a man staying at the Mandalay Bay called 911.
All right. Let's go back on that a little bit because this pisses me off. All right. There's his window. All right. This fucking clown is saying that that window's not broken. The fuck is that? Looks like an open fucking window to me. And this fucking little artifacting here, they did a pretty good job zooming in on this. So, fuck this guy. He's full of shit. And their video player on this sucks balls. So, unfortunately, I have to bounce back and forth.
Police inside the room after the shooting said there was no broken window.
I do not have a broken window.
After the shooting,
we're going Hoover.
A man staying at the Mandalay Bay called 911 and reported an explosion and glass falling down from above.
911 emergency, Brown 15968. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
Okay, and I just heard what sounded like a explosion above me, and then glass coming down around me, or right outside the window.
Later that night, BBC television showed one window being broken. By the next morning, there were two broken windows. Several witnesses claimed there were multiple shooters.
Sounded like there were a dozen shooters.
It sounded like more than one machine gun.
The New York Excalibur shooting was right outside. It wasn't inside, it was outside. We saw the muzzle flashes.
I'm waiting for somebody to come through that entrance because it sounds like they're on the ground.
I knew we were getting gunshots that were closer to us than where they originally started, and that's when we knew we had to run.
We all started running, and they came in.
Multiple shooters. It has to be.
There was also shooting going on inside of the Mandalay Bay.
Claims of multiple shooters can also be heard on security and police comms.
There was a shooter at the front desk of New York, and 2 shots were fired inside casino floor.
It sounds like it's confirmed there are at least 2 shooters with fully automatic weapons.
Now I'm getting information of an active shooter at Tropicana.
Has advised bomb squad to deal with the issue over there at Luxor, reference the 445 device.
It is be advised now there's an active shooter at the Tropicana.
In one video, we see what looks like a weapon firing from a window 6 floors above Paddock's room in the Four Seasons, which is owned by Bill Gates and Saudi Prince Al Walid bin Talal. There also appears to be muzzle flashes coming from the sky on both sides of the Mandalay Bay. Precisely where flight radar places 3 helicopters that turned off their transponders minutes before the shooting began, while hovering in position overlooking the Route 91 Harvest Festival.
He's flying in a helicopter. Do you think he's in a helicopter? Yes.
not a doubt in my mind that there was shooting coming from the helicopter.
In room 32135, Paddock's hard drive was suspiciously missing from his laptop. There were several pairs of gloves, mobile phones, and multiple hotel room keys used just 30 minutes before the shooting, including smart keys available only to hotel staff. At first, police said that Paddock's hard drive was suspiciously missing from his laptop. There were several pairs of gloves, mobile phones.
All right, what the fuck are we talking about here? So, mobile phones. Somebody didn't do a very good job editing this bullshit because this is gloves. This is not phones. All right, that's what we're doing here. I wish you could push play from here, man. This sucks.
And multiple hotel room keys used just 30 minutes before the shooting, including smart keys available only to hotel staff. At first, police said they witnessed Paddock kill himself, and then they claim they found him dead after the breach. And for some unknown reason, his time of death was marked at noon the following day. Mandalay Bay security guard Jesus Campos was supposedly shot in the leg by Paddock 6 minutes before he began his attack. And yet, it took law enforcement 72 minutes to get into Paddock's hotel room. Body cam footage shows a hotel security guard directing police to the 32nd floor.
32. Yeah, 32. Is it confirmed?
Service elevator.
And less than 10 minutes later, directing other officers to the 29th floor. When the police finally get to Paddock's floor, hotel security seems strangely casual. One strolls down the hallway with his back to Paddock's room and points behind him to room 135. And they then stand calmly in the hallway with their attention fixed on the police. Hotel security manager George Umstadt was later found hiding in a hotel room and detained by police. And several key officers were never even questioned.
That's funny.
Campos claimed he went to UMC Quick Care for treatment, but the facility stated they had no record of this. He then left the country and returned only to appear on the Ellen DeGeneres show, owned by MGM. MGM was granted a restraining order weeks after the shooting to prevent them from destroying evidence.
I can only think of two possible scenarios here. One, completely implausible, that the Mandalay was a co-conspirator in this, which is nonsense. Or number two, there's some kind of hostility or a trust gap developing between law enforcement and the Mandalay. Nothing else makes sense, Tucker. There's no other way to square that circle.
One theory suggests it was Saudi Arabia. Just 3 months before the Las Vegas massacre, moderate Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS, was made the crown prince of Saudi Arabia and was met that same day with President Trump's personal show of support. This created a civil war between MBS and his hardliner cousin, Al Walid bin Talal, co-owner of the Four Seasons, which resides on floors 35 through 39 of the Mandalay Bay Hotel.
Yeah.
The theory suggests there was a failed assassination attempt against MBS at the Tropicana Hotel that night, and that the massacre at the Route 91 Harvest Festival was a savage message of warning to President Trump. Stephen Paddock was a pilot, and according to this theory, a gun runner for Prince Al Walid bin Talal. This would explain Paddock's wealth and access to the service elevators at the Mandalay Bay. And when the assassination attempt failed, Paddock became Talal's sacrificial lamb rather than his getaway pilot. The prince had Saudi military helicopters in the area at the time.
Really?
4 weeks after the Las Vegas shooting, MBS had his cousin Prince Al Walid bin Talal and 10 other princes arrested on corruption and money laundering charges. We don't know if this theory is correct, but a year later, the case was closed. And we are told there is nothing to the story but the 64-year-old lone gunman with no motive, Stephen Paddock.
There's no conspiracy between the FBI, between LVMPD and the MGM. Nobody is attempting to hide anything.
For Infowars.com,
Yeah,
this is Greg Reese.
Don't need to see that little outro there, but let's see what this one is.
I do believe that there was 100% more than one shooter. Every other person that I've talked to that did get unfortunately hit as well have all said the same things.
They know that there was multiple shooters.
Sounded like there were a dozen shooters.
The New York Excalibur shooting was right outside. It wasn't inside. It was outside. We saw the muzzle flashes.
If anybody has any questions as far as what they're saying on TV and what is actually going on, here's the proof. We called the police station and we also called the news to let them know. Like I said, I don't know what happened at the other hotels. All I know is what happened here at the Bellagio.
She saw the muzzle flashes from very up close. And we don't like talking about it. It's not something to take very lightly. A lot of people don't believe that we saw the things that we saw. They think that we were like I'm Superman and I was everywhere at one place, and that's not true. I'm just saying that Tropicana shootings we heard, and the New York Excalibur, I'm not sure which one it really was, but it came from that direction because it's across the street from the parking structure at Tropicana.
And all of a sudden we hear the little whizzing going by us, and the bullets are just flying by. And when something's coming up and down, or at least from a different angle, they're either going to hit the ground, they're going to a lot of different things are going to happen. When someone's shooting from a straight horizontal line, it's just going to keep flying. As soon as we heard a little break in it, we knew we had to keep running.
The fact that the police weren't moving on anything tells me that they felt like there were multiple, multiple shooters, because they were all down behind that masonry wall about 30 yards in front of us where we were towards the strip. They were that 5 foot masonry wall ran down. It was one of the dividers on the entrance to the concert. I'm waiting for somebody to come through that entrance because it sounds like they're on the ground.
This is crazy. There's a shooter in Planet Hollywood right now.
And after much debate, I've decided to make this video. The reason why I'm making this video is to give everyone my eyewitness account of what happened down at Planet Hollywood.
We heard the gunfires approaching where we were. They just started getting closer and closer and louder and louder. And I knew we were getting gunshots that were closer to us than where they originally started. And that's when we knew we had to run.
All I know is that the burst of shots were very quick and they didn't last long. They were not 15 seconds long like the Mandalay Bay shooter was. They were very short bursts, and it was almost as if they just wanted to get a few shots in and then quickly get out.
Now it sounds like it's coming from farther away. I hear gunfire over the sound of the casino, which is, a lot of bells and whistles because machines going off or whatever. There was music playing and people talking. So it was, an elevated amount of noise in the casino. And yet I still heard these gunshots.
We heard shots coming from like Hooters, MGM area. Over there, there was shots coming from over there, and there were shots going from Mandalay Bay.
Oh my God! More gunfire, much closer. I would estimate it had to be within a half block of where I was.
And you guys said that there were multiple shots fired.
We were the furthest VIP stages away from Mandalay Bay, and they were ricocheting everywhere where we were. So they were firing from somewhere high, and they were unloading clip after clip after clip after clip.
People are seeing their shots at Bellagio. I wasn't there. I can't tell you, but I was at Tropicana, and I did hear those shots. and we ran out to the day pool area and we hid in the cabanas for 30 minutes.
So there is a shooter, you believe?
Multiple shooters.
Multiple shooters.
It has to be.
The thing that's really shocking to me is that there are hundreds, if not thousands of us who know it.
There was also shooting going on inside of the Mandalay Bay. So a little bit later, I got on Periscope and started broadcasting. I had a little over 10,000 viewers watching, and I was down there while it was evacuated, and there was nobody out there. Front desk was gone. It was totally like a ghost town. And we actually met up with these other guys who were also looking, trying to find information. And we met up with these security guards and police officers who asked us what we were doing and told us to run away. And we heard gunshots from around the corner. We were in the Delano, right next to a walkway that connects the Mandalay Bay at the Delano. And we heard gunshots from right out that hallway. So we think that the police were dealing with the shooter while we were down there.
It sounded like machine guns. It sounded like more than one machine gun. And it just didn't stop, like 30 minutes.
I don't like the fact that it was being reported one way. We were trying to make all kinds of phone calls because when I heard the gunfire, and I've never heard anything like that, and I never in my life thought I'd ever be in anything like that. And now they were saying no, that nothing happened at the other hotels. Like I said, I don't know what happened at the other hotels, but I do know what happened at this one, and I know that my husband right here jumped on top of me, and I was holding on to another lady because she was scared to death crying.
Because we were kind of in a line of fire running north toward Luxor, and the police officer was saying, go get in this room. And then, you know, I felt like there were like these 6 young, I don't know, they must have been like 20, I don't know, in their early 20s, and they were crying, they were on their knees. I got the thought of Orlando, you know, being kind of held captive in there. I didn't want to die inside this little room.
When people get shot around you, you can hear it. You can hear when the bullets actually make contact with the body. And that is a very, 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 it's very hard to hear. You don't want to hear that. You can hear when the bullets don't hit, and you can hear when the bullets do. And I heard more bullets hitting than didn't.
They kept coming. That was the thing. It wasn't that, okay, let's all leave and that was okay. No, we all started running and they came in. That's why there's no humanly possible way that guy, that was the only shooter.
And it's definitely someone on the ground.
I'm listening to the chatter on the security guards two-way radios, okay? And I'm listening to the police stream that I also downloaded off of YouTube, so it was the very same one. So I'm hearing shots fired here, shots fired there. I'm hearing the chatter that's going on between the security guards.
Control 656, I'm still on CTAX channel. Do we have a 415A in New York? It originally came in and said many subjects were down. There's one that came in at 23:06 hours, secondhand advice. There was a shooter at the front desk of New York.
Right outside New York.
And there's approximately 150 subjects sheltered in place inside the kitchen area there. And 2 shots were fired inside casino floor. And there's several subjects down at New York, Zoomanity.
Whoever is responding to New York from the patrol side, I need somebody to get into the cameras to verify whether this is a diversion break.
We have a security officer also shot in the leg on the 32nd floor. He's standing by the elevator. It sounds like it's confirmed there are at least 2 shooters with fully automatic weapons. Control Avery 63, over by the Motel 6 by Tropicana.
Okay, now I'm getting information of an active shooter at Tropicana.
Has advised bomb squad to deal with the issue over there at Luxor, reference the 445 device. And I've got FBI SWAT, Henderson SWAT, and North Las Vegas SWAT en route to our staging area.
And just be advised now there's an active shooter at the Tropicana,
And there were 3 bursts. 3 bursts inside the Tropicana casino. People who were there inside will tell you that there was that, and that happened, and it was confirmed via those people that were in there.
The hotel is on lockdown. And I know, like I said, I couldn't get close enough to film the front doors with all the glass and everything all over, but I'm sure that's why they're not letting anybody out, because of the bullets that were probably in the lobby and the glass that was all over. So I hope this helped to clear some stuff up for people, just in case you might want to know what's really going on here. And I hope that the news does get it straight.
When people are saying that there's no proof that these other shots fired happened, I say BS, because I heard panicked people on the phone trying to instruct their loved ones to just stay cool or run or do whatever. And everybody who was talking sincerely knew or thought they knew that their lives were potentially in danger.
Yeah, I was just asking if you guys are discounting rooms because none of us could really get there, and most of us didn't really sleep because of all the gunfire and all the happenings here last night. And she looked right at us and she said, there was no gunfire outside the Bellagio Hotel last night. Just like that.
It's like it's scary. Isn't it like the Twilight Zone? That is chilling.
All right.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
All right. So there's a lot taken out of context there. There's a lot of, sorry, but if you're a normie watching that, that's very confusing as far as talking about shooting one place and then having a witness from another place saying that they were, it's all over the place. So this is a documentary here. This is what they put out, and I think they put this out today. Those other videos, I don't know when those came out. And I'm not going to get through this entire thing, man. I don't got that kind of time right now. I got to rewind it. I don't got that kind of time right now, but I will. I see Tim Cass. All right. Tim Pool, go with your bad self. Oh, I can't pause this one. All right, so yeah, look at that, Mercado Law. Anyway, so I think this was put out today. I watched about 10 minutes of it, and I don't know. We'll see. Those last two videos, man. I'm sorry, but the fucking windows are broken. You kind of proved it while you were trying to disprove it. So that was kind of dumb. The editing was a little screwball. Pointing at gloves, calling them cell phones. The Al Talib, whatever the fuck, don't give a shit. You've never been able to prove that because one incident happens does not correlate to another incident being in conjunction with it. That's ridiculous. That's grasping at straws. And then that last one, we got a guy that I believe was in the concert talking, and at the same time they're showing people in hotels talking, so they're making you think that he was in a hotel like the Hard Rock. I believe it's the Hard Rock they were going on. So they make you believe that he was in the Hard Rock and he was actually shot in the Hard Rock. So that kind of spin, I don't really like. That's not a good thing. So it's hard to take a lot of this too seriously.
Hear that thunder roll, those lights flash. Hear that thunder roll, those lights flash. Hear that thunder roll.
By the way, I don't know how many of you know this, but I believe Lombardo's running for governor against Sisolak. And it sounds like they're not really friends. So that's an interesting thing. They're still going after Steve Wynn. They're trying to find a way to go after Steve Wynn, even though he's out of the business.
When you listen to that thunder roar, let your spirit soar.
My name is Mindy Robinson. I'm a political commentator, a constitutionalist activist, and an investigative journalist. I actually got my start in acting, where I was able to use my platform to push for the things that I believed in, like the Second Amendment, freedom of speech, and being pro-life, which turned into a lot of traveling and speaking up about all the things that I was uncovering that the mainstream media wouldn't. I focused on things like government corruption, biased media censorship, protecting children from sexual predators on social media, and exposing how the fake news media has absolutely no problem lying to us. Living in Las Vegas the last 8 years also meant I was reporting on the insane amount of corruption here that the local news wouldn't. Like how our governor illegally shut down businesses, blocked life-saving medicine, legalized giving someone AIDS on purpose, or how my county commissioners voted to censor free speech at a meeting their security assaulted us at. How I was threatened with a Class C felony for demanding an election audit by the Secretary of State and our 4-time arrested Attorney General, or how we still have no idea where the millions in GoFundMe money that Governor Sisolak and Sheriff Lombardo raised for the Route 91 shooting victims. Corruption in Las Vegas runs deep, and I have never been one to back down from calling out corrupt government officials from either party when I see them.
You'll not get away with this. We will not comply anymore. I'm glad you're getting a paycheck, and I'm glad you're sitting in your seats thinking you'll never be removed because you got election fraud on your side, but we're working on that too. Have a great day. Thank you.
Please do not clap.
Please do not clap.
You know it was rigged. You know it was rigged. Why aren't you fighting for the rights of Nevada? My free speech. I couldn't go to church. Where were you? You were not by my side fighting it. You're making millions in your 14 houses, 2 private jets, inside of stock trading to the tune of $3 million.
But the most corrupt cover-up to ever occur in Nevada still haunts Las Vegas to this day. On October 1st, 2017, one of the largest mass shootings in America occurred at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas. It was a terroristic assault on innocent civilians and everything American I can think of. But if you think we don't have an answer to this tragedy because the guy responsible killed himself and nothing ever pointed to anything else, then I'll let you in on a secret everyone else here already knows.
The word incompetence has been brought forward. And I am absolutely offended with that characterization.
It's so poorly done.
It's so poorly done. I have a hard time thinking it's just negligence.
The entire thing was one big cover-up. And they got away with it because the mainstream media dropped the story almost immediately, and officials stopped giving press conferences to avoid having to answer any of the public's questions about any of the glaring inconsistencies, conflicting witness statements, or explain any of the other shootings that occurred on the Strip that night that went against the FBI's lone gunman narrative that for whatever reason they were set on from the very beginning, despite all the obvious evidence to the contrary.
Not one guy did not do all this. There is no way.
Holy shit!
This motherfucker's still ringing out right now.
What is that?
Okay, let's go. That's close. That's real close.
And then I moved. Oh, thanks,
our SWAT took down one suspect on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay.
They did. That's high power though. They're all the pronouns I did were all headshots, bro.
But we know, and we have multiple different calibers. So I'm just saying we have at least one suspect down. There's most likely more than one. Yeah, that's fucking dead center.
Fucking center, dude.
All right. Yeah.
Shit. That guy, see, same thing. That guy was a fucking headshot right in the fucking forehead.
Fuck, man.
There can't be that many headshots. No, I don't know. That many people over here.
Of course there
How'd
can.
be targeted?
The sea of
How'd
heads.
be targeted?
We're getting over now, and now we're running across the street, and we hear shots coming from like Hooters, MGM area. Over there, there was shots coming from over there, and there was shots going from Mandalay Bay.
Every other person that I've talked to that did get unfortunately hit as well have all said the same things.
They know that there was multiple shooters.
Sounded like there were a dozen shooters.
The New York Excalibur shooting was right outside. It wasn't inside. It was outside. We saw the muzzle flashes.
I don't want to. I just found it in the street, brother. Street round right here.
Anyone got a glove?
Okay. I don't think any help. I just want you guys to know.
Love it.
Somebody handed me a 223 round they found on the ground outside.
Outside there? That's not a 223.
No, that's a yeah.
Somebody was coming in from the We're here at the north side. North side? Yep.
Dude's
somebody's coming in.
tanked.
How many? Just one? Just one.
It kept coming. That's the thing. It wasn't that, okay, let's all leave and now it's okay. No, we all started running and they came in. That's why there's no humanly possible way that guy doesn't issue. And it's definitely someone on the ground.
Concert. I'm waiting for somebody to come through that entrance because it sounds like they're on the ground.
The gunfire's approaching where we were. They just started getting closer and closer and louder and louder. And I knew we were getting gunshots that were closer to us than where they originally started. And that's when we knew we had to run.
All I know is that the burst of shots were very quick and they didn't last long. They were not 15 seconds long like the Mandalay Bay shooter was.
Now it sounds like it's coming from farther away.
There was also shooting going on inside of the Mandalay Bay.
It sounded like more than one machine gun, and it just didn't stop.
We heard gunshots from around the corner. We were in the Delano, right next to a walkway that connects the Mandalay Bay at the Delano.
Multiple shots fired.
We were the furthest VIP stages away from Mandalay Bay, and they were ricocheting everywhere where we were. So they were firing from somewhere high, and they were unloading clip after clip after clip after clip.
He was a shooter. You believe
multiple shooters?
Multiple shooters.
It has to be.
But it flew low enough that I could see that there was a black curtain, the door was open, and the color of the instrument panel. It flew right over our heads. As soon as it got in front of Mandalay Bay, it kind of rose up in altitude, and that's when we heard the gunshots. I turned to my left immediately, looked up at the helicopter, and it was just like, what the hell? That was automatic gunfire. I'm thinking to myself, my girlfriend responds to me. She goes, babe, did you hear that helicopter? And I go, what about that helicopter? She says, it sounded funny. And I go, what do you mean it sounded funny? She goes, it just sounded weird. I go, that wasn't the helicopter. That was automatic gunfire. And then as we're talking about it, I turn my head to my left again, and I look at the helicopter, and I see it circle around Mandalay Bay towards the back end of it, and there's no gunshots. As soon as it comes back to the front of Mandalay Bay, you hear the brrr again, and then it flies off again.
Tell it that night, but for some reason, I just knew it was coming out of that helicopter. I was so unbelievably certain that it was coming from the helicopter.
Yes, we have all kinds of help on the way, okay? Everything's going to be okay. We're getting officers out there. Okay?
They're going to see the officers on the sky because he's flying in a helicopter.
You think he's in a helicopter?
Yes.
I almost felt like there was a helicopter above us shooting. It was so bizarre, like a war sound.
There's an active shooter on the airport. This is a blanket broadcast for all aircraft. Just a heads up.
Hey, yes, we need police. Mark, this is Kid Flamingo. We just got a call right now saying shots fired in the back parking lot, employee parking lot area. You know, just so you know, we had got before the shots fired. We did have a guest who brought a gun to officers out near valet. So it was a gun found also near the valet entrance.
This is fucking crazy. The shooter from Hollywood. Right across from the area sign, and there is somebody going batshit crazy with a gun on the bridge right across from the area sign.
Please be advised now we're getting shots fired at Caesars and Bellagio.
Caesars and Bellagio. 413 in Paris.
Paris?
Yeah.
They said at the bottom of Delano, the casino level of the Delano, and I saw two gunmen with look like AR-15 type rifles come around the corner.
You might exit Bellagio employee entrance. There's a bell walking in with a rifle. Bellagio employee entrance. Units for getting a 415A now, Bellagio BR. Fired.
Is that what it was?
Right here. Oh shit, that's machine gun. That's machine gun fire.
We were given no answers. We were given no motive. Confused people woke up the next day to find the news focused only on Paddock and the concert, with no reporting by the news of anything else that happened on the Strip that night.
Brian Shields. Favorite picture.
As Daniel and I were sitting where bullets were being fired.
Night, and I know damn well I heard a gunshot inside this building.
We thought so too. Yeah, and then it never got covered.
How can that be?
No one ever talked about it.
Did you hear it?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
How many did you hear? I heard two.
Yeah, I know. And then we saw people running. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
But
oh shit! You know whose footage this is? Does anyone know whose footage this is?
It was just flying all over the place. And see, that is the truth. And the next day, I mean, the were there people talking about after the shots came from there? After, yes.
I saw casings right here. Right around here? So there were beer cans, there were empty drink cups, and there were maybe a dozen, really, brass 1.5-inch, 2-inch tubes spread out.
As if someone was shooting right here.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't in a pile, they weren't in a bunch, they weren't touching each other, they were spread out. So, yeah.
I walked over by the Tropicana. I found bullets. It was still some on the ground. But in the parking lot. Well, at the Tropicana parking lot. Part of the parking lot. Right where they made their triage, right almost by the door. I'll be darned.
So I sat down at a slot machine
I'll be darned.
inside of Planet Hollywood. Now I hear gunfire over the sound of the casino. More gunfire, much closer. I would estimate it had to be within a half block. People are starting to pour in. So I go to the cashier. He looks at the timestamp, whatever. And so he asked me, were you here with all that went down last night? I said, yeah. He said, what happened? And so I told him briefly. He looks at the cashier next to him. He said, I told you. So she looks back at him and says, well, why are they telling you guys not to say so? He was like, I don't know. I didn't say so. She did, pointing at me. So from that, I gathered that the employees that were even there at the time were threatened to keep their damn mouths shut. Period. A whole lot of stuff went down. And almost none of it is being reported on mainstream news. Almost none of it.
No explanation was ever given about any of the other shots heard, casings found, guns found, helicopters that weren't supposed to be there, or any other gunmen seen across the Strip that night. The LVPD simply wrote it off like nothing happened, which also meant they weren't pulling footage or actively investigating any of it either. To this day, it has been a constant uphill battle with law enforcement for even the most simplest of answers about the shooting.
It was my understanding before I had said he had gotten separated. That was inaccurate. What had happened was he was conducting an investigation based on customers calling in, and he was personally attempting to locate what was occurring. He happened upon that doorway because it was ajar, which keyed his interest. But our officers were in close proximity. So as you can imagine by the timeline there, as soon as they came out of the doorway of the elevator, he was there. So it happened in a matter of seconds.
Officials had to be sued to release reports, autopsies, body cam footage, and to this day, many journalistic FOIAs requesting further evidence in what is supposed to be public information have been illegally ignored. For some reason, officials have outright refused to be forthcoming about this investigation on any level.
And most of you are used to how I conduct myself in these conferences, so I will call upon you and then determine whether I will answer your question.
I've read through the police reports, listened to 911 calls, police scanners, and hard-saved every video I could get my hands on before the powers that be could scrub them from the internet. After flip-flopping on timelines, refusing to answer basic questions, and raising public suspicion because authorities felt the need to be so evasive about everything, videos relating to evidence of multiple shooters or alternative narratives were banned, censored, and suppressed on major social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Because Lord forbid, people question the FBI's narrative of a 64-year-old man unloading over 1,000 rounds in 10 minutes with absolutely no motive, no history of mental illness, no known political affiliation, and all the while shots are being heard across the Strip long after they find him dead.
SWAT shot him. That's a shot.
They sure didn't want us to see everything that happened on Metro 5's helicopter cam that night, or how hotel staff helped load all the gun cases up their own service elevator. But they sure wanted us to know that he was dead and the case shut and closed by purposefully leaking out an immediate photo of a fresh blood stain on top of a dry one? Huh? And how did he get underneath the rifle here?
It's coagulated.
Or throw the pistol he supposedly uses up and over so far behind his head? And what's the blood stain on his chest about? And if you're wondering, no, there's no forensics available on his blood splatter to prove he actually committed suicide at all. And the coroner put Paddock's time of death down as noon the next day.
Yeah,
so
I did
we
that
have
with
no
all the,
idea when he
other
actually
people
died.
also.
That didn't stop
Doesn't
Lombardo
mean
from
shit.
declaring in his final report that Paddock died in a very specific 2-minute window based off, nothing. Although I did find buried in a report that their heat sensor stopped picking up readings in the room at that time, which, considering it takes a body over 12 hours to become cool to the touch and 24 to the core, sort of implies he didn't just off himself a minute earlier. I guess we weren't supposed to notice these things? I'm hoping this video will break through the media blackout and reignite the public's interest to start demanding the answers from authorities we rightfully deserve. There were absolutely multiple shooters using multiple calibers at different locations at night. And it was by definition a terrorist attack. Either foreign, domestic, or both. And it was purposefully covered up for reasons I hope after this will come to light.
There is no conspiracy between the FBI, between LVMPD, and the MGM. Nobody is attempting to hide anything.
As much time as I put into this reveal, I owe an immense credit to the work of all the citizen journalists that came before me, searching for their own answers. Between the electronic hotel door lock information that revealed both doors to both rooms opening from the inside at the same time that night, proving Paddock wasn't alone.
A key card was tried from the outside,
Not at the same
denied.
time.
Key card was tried from the outside again, denied. And then what we call the impossible event happens. The door opens from the inside.
To audio examination of the gunfire by a sound editor with 20 plus years experience, proving multiple guns were used at the same time.
Look at the symmetry. Look at that symmetry. They're in the same place. They just moved up a few feet. Shots coming from the same point. One gun here. Here, they're back, maybe 15 feet. You can hear the guns in the background, and you can hear the primary in the background. I hope you can. At least you can see it in the waveform because it's all erratic. Look at the difference between that and that. Same guy, same body cam, same officer, same alleyway. Big difference. So these are some of the questions that have to be answered. I hope this helps, and eventually may the truth prevail. God bless America.
You're hearing the
To a
muzzle blast in
detailed
the
breakdown of radar imagery from that night that shows covert actions by aircraft that the LVPD never tried to explain or even acknowledge.
And they're going to stop directly behind the Mandalay Bay. So this first one hovers right there, right over Mandalay Bay, right over the event center, kind of oval-shaped roof. Here comes the third and the fourth. Notice that first helicopter, what happened is it turned off its transponder. These other two are about to do the same, and they turn off their transponders as well.
Oh, shit. So, as far as the noise goes, I mean, you have at least two different sounds that those guns were making. You have the muzzle blast and then the sonic crack, which means every single one of those is going to have a muffled sound followed by a crack. The crack's probably going to be louder. It's probably going to change in pitch because of distance to the person. Where the crack is actually originating from, depending on if the bullet's going over their head, going, by them. so forth and so on. Now, you have an argument of echoes, this thing echoing off the building, stuff like that, which, I'll buy a little bit of that argument. Once you end up with a sonic crack in the venue, I don't believe you're going to hear an echo off of the building from that. But, the way that's working is you're going to have the muzzle blast coming out of the window. That's going to make a noise. That noise is going to bounce off a little bit. The sonic crack of the bullet, before it hits the venue, that may bounce off the building a little bit. You could run into some kind of a echo chamber theory on that. So I don't buy it when people show stupid shit like that. That's I don't know, And then this whole flight radar thing right here, well, he just showed, because I don't really give a shit about helicopters too much. What he just showed right there was a bunch of people turning off their transponders, apparently. That's what it looks like, at least. So if they turn off their transponders, is there a lag time on that? Is there a lag time? Is there a delay on flight radar? That's what this looked like. That looked like the first guy turned off his transponder, so you ended up with a ghost helicopter there at his last known position. Then the next one does the same thing. Next one does the same thing. They all do it right about the same place, which is a little awkward. That's odd. Unless something was going on in Mandalay Bay that was blocking off the transponder. Which I don't know. I doubt it. I don't care too much about helicopter stuff, but that's just what I'm seeing with that bullshit.
And they remained there. No transponder signals come back on for the duration of the shooting. So they turned off their transponders at about 9:52, and
those transponders don't need to be on. They just don't have to. And from my understanding, generally when they come into an airport, a lot of times they do turn them off. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've read any of that bullshit, but
no more transponders will appear in that area. But what's interesting is that even though we have no radar data showing flights in that area, video evidence clearly shows flights being in that area during the shooting. I want you to notice as we watch this clip, the flashes coming from behind and in between Mandalay Bay and Delano Towers. There's no aircraft in the air at this time, according to flight data, but we see lights flashing in there, which have to come from aircraft because there's no other buildings tall enough for them to be coming from this perspective. The flashes are inconsistent. They're not normal, consistent flashes like you would see from beacons or anti-collision lights. So it's possible these flashes are coming from a muzzle.
To uncovering that Metro knew by 1 a.m. that
now with that, I don't even see what he's pointing at. I whatever. That's that camera's all shaky anyway. That's stupid.
night that there were 3 women other than the girlfriend registered at Paddock's room that Lombardo never felt the need to investigate, explain, or even publicly mention.
Now this is
and he's registered there with 3 other females. I don't know, you want all their names.
Why is it documented, right? The 3 women were inside the room and they redacted their names from the document. And for some reason, not only did they lie about Paddock being alone in the room, but they are hiding who these women are. And I think that we're going to really learn a lot more about what happened in Vegas once we learn the identities of these 3 women.
Which we never
To
will.
in-depth interviews and autopsy reports that don't line up with Metro's conclusion of a single shooter.
Could this be where the shooters are, and that it's not coming from room 32135?
Oh, no, you didn't.
Why don't we see that aircraft on Flight Radar 24? At this moment in time, there's nothing on Flight Radar.
Because it doesn't have to
And while
be
anomalies can always occur with ricochets, etc., it doesn't explain how so many trajectories.
All right. Flight Radar 24. My memory of that is, I believe it was 27% of commercial aircraft had Flight Radar or had the transponder that works with Flight Radar 24. And I think it was like 36% or something like that of personal private aircraft that had transponders that work with Flight Radar 24. So, and it wasn't like something that they had to have. So that throws that whole fucking theory out the window. That's stupid.
trajectories don't match up to a gunman on the 32nd floor in a building across the street. Multiple witnesses stated in reports they saw people get hit straight on, as if the shots were coming from ground level, and how the shots sounded closer the further they ran away from Mandalay Bay.
All of a sudden, we hear the little whizzing going by us, and the bullets are just flying by. And when something's coming up and down, or at least from a different angle, they're either going to hit the ground, they're going to a lot of different things are going to happen. When someone's shooting from a straight horizontal line, it's just going to keep flying. As soon as we heard a little break in it, we knew we had to keep running.
So I did a little bit more digging, and based off what I was able to match between victim reports and the anonymous autopsy findings using things like gender, weight, eye and hair color, tattoos, and the descriptions and placement of their wounds, was able to analyze several of the more...
I've seen that before. I've seen that. I don't know. I think most of you probably have too at this point.
Unusual trajectories. Am I an expert at this? No. But I can read reports and do basic math, which is apparently more effort than the FBI put into this entire investigation. They didn't run ballistics to match the bullets from the victims to the guns in the room either. None that they're willing to release anyway. Most fatalities were hit at the diagonal and downward angle you would expect from someone firing from Mandalay Bay. But not everybody. Those yellow circles are people that were hit with a near perfect parallel ground trajectory, within a difference of a half inch or less. While some could simply be ricochets, this seems more like a pattern, and coupled with so many witnesses stating they heard shots coming from the main stage and at ground level, certainly deserves more of an investigation than it was given.
All right, so this is a Hoover thing, man. Apparently his chick's a fucking Hoover fan, which I actually like this girl, but damn. Okay, if somebody's ducking down, where are they going to get hit? Where are they going to get hit? You know, somebody's looking up at the Mandalay Bay because they think there's fireworks fucking going off. Where are they going to get hit? If people are running, where are they going to get hit? There's nobody. This isn't a situation where everybody was just standing upright getting fucking pelted. That's not what was happening here. So to say, you know, without any form of official ballistics or any of that bullshit or any official investigation within that, you can't make that determination that it's fucking weird that people were shot in certain areas, right? And this is an argument that's been going on forever. It's fucking retarded. I don't understand how people don't fucking get it. But realistically, when someone gets shot, if someone gets shot in the arm, they're going to survive. If somebody gets shot in the head, they're probably going to die. Okay. And if somebody gets shot in the center mass, it depends really, you know, what kind of organs that bullet goes through and how much damage it does, whether it's going to take them out or not. So we're looking at, you know, where people were hit. Like, you know, when we go through statistics as far as dumb shit like that, you know, all these people died. They were all shot in the head. Well, yeah, because you generally die when you're shot in the head. When 400 and something people maintain fucking injuries due to gunshot wounds, and 30 of them died with gunshot wounds to the head. Out of 400, those statistics get very, very small, and they make more sense. So a lot of this crap is just taken out of context. It's kind of dumb. There are weird things to this, man. I mean, there's legit strange shit. She's brought up some decent stuff, you know, but when you start going into stuff like this, it's dumb.
At least 19 out of the 58 autopsies appear to have parallel trajectories from what I can tell from these reports. That blue circle, the second closest victim to Mandalay Bay, he was hit almost vertically from the top of his head down. That extreme elevated trajectory happened to at least...
All right. So when you're ducking down, unless you know exactly how this person was standing, sitting, ducked down, was he on top of his wife so his body was at an angle, what was going on here? You don't know. Since you don't know, you can't make the determination that anything is strange about this. There's just not enough evidence there for you to say that this is bizarre.
3 other individuals that night.
It's important
It's all
where all
Hoover
the bodies were found, right? The first 20 we call were found in front of the stage, and a lot of them had headshots. Then there was a group of 6 bodies that were found in close proximity right between the church and the festival grounds. So this would be on the street on the east side of the festival grounds, which is behind a long privacy wall. They were found along the fence line. So there's no way that a person, if you can't shoot what you can't see.
Speaking of weird coincidences.
Oh, this fucking guy. So those bodies that were found over by the fence. Now, I believe that's where the medical tent was. So people were bringing them to the medical tent. I think we even have video on that. So that's pointless video.
There's also the never reported on by mainstream news of Australian Brian Hodge, who claimed almost immediately in both social media posts and in interviews that he was the one staying in room 32-134 next to the shooter. You know, the one directly adjoined to Paddock's that Metro had to blow in because it was locked from the other side. Where he would claim to be during the shooting would change several times, but he also unintentionally in those early interviews mentioned very specific details about the shooting that weren't known to the public at the time. He knew a special hammer was used to break the hurricane-proof window in the room.
So there's no balconies. He actually he checked in the hotel on Thursday and came with a specific hammer that's designed to break that glass. Whatever the glass is that casinos have, whether it's double pane or bulletproof or whatever it is, but was able to smash that glass and then actually shoot out through the glass that way. So cracked a massive big hole in the window pane.
And much like the FBI and LVPD would falsely push, he also claimed Paddock checked in a Mandalay Bay on Thursday the 28th, which is interesting because, number one, he supposedly just checked in himself the night before, so it's not like he could have ran into Paddock those days earlier by accident. And 2, the real check-in date was actually on the 25th, which for some reason, Lombardo decided to lie to the public about during a press conference the next day, even though dispatch logs showed he 100% already knew the real check-in date was the 25th, and that there were 3 other women other than the girlfriend registered to his room. Hodge also assumed the security guard that walked down the hall was shot and killed, which, given the amount of bullets that came through the door, was shocking he wasn't. Hodge also manipulated the GPS on his phone that day to hide his whereabouts both before and after the shooting. He lied about hiding in the bushes as officers clearing the area never saw anyone in them. And he also posted what many have dubbed a trophy photo of him at the crime scene. Listen to this interview he gives to the Australian press less than 24 hours after the incident, where he's so enveloped in pushing the narrative that things, aka gun rights, need to change in America, that he prematurely reveals knowing almost exactly how many guns were in the room, even though news stations at the time were reporting less.
Okay, now I believe Brian Hodge lives in Los Angeles, so he is actually, I don't know if he's here on a work visa or whatnot, but Brian Hodge is not some dude that lives in Australia that just came over here and wants to change gun rights. That's, foolish. But that's something that's always been interesting, man. Brian Hodge is a very strange part of this.
To reflect on it, but one thing that's really kind of come out of this, I think it needs to change. I think they really need to think about it, and I realize that it's not safe. The security here is not great. I've always loved that Vegas is very free. You come here, people have a good time. But last night it really kind of hit me that I was like, I don't think that's the right way going forward. I don't think being able to walk in with 20 machine guns and not get noticed and have scopes in your room set up for 3 days.
There were 24 guns found between the 2 rooms, 22 semi-automatic rifles, if you minus the bolt action and the revolver. How did he know that? And how did he know how long they were there for? His politics lean left, if you couldn't tell from his anti-gun rhetoric, and almost immediately an Australian Antifa group on Facebook took credit for the shooting, stating one of their own had committed the attack on what was, let's keep it real, a mostly Trump-supporting crowd.
That I didn't know. I mean, I think I probably heard that, at one point. I didn't realize Antifa, of all fucking people, was taking responsibility of that. I thought there was some like literature in the room or some bullshit about some crap, but I didn't realize that was the thing.
Fact checkers deemed it fake, not because they actually checked it out, but because the account only had 800 followers, which sounds like 800 too many idiots for me. There are actually fake Antifa accounts out there run by right-wing trolls, maybe some of them my friends. But last I checked, even joking about a terrorist attack will get you a knock on the door from authorities. Well, when they're actually trying to solve the crime anyway. How Brian Hodge knew so much insider information about the shooting before anyone else did, we'll never know. Because the FBI's top brass forbid anyone, including their own agents, from investigating him. And he was allowed to leave the country without even being questioned about what his connection to Paddock was. He was actually registered to room 32314, not 32134, although you have to wonder why he recalled the room number of the shooting over his own.
Now, I don't know if Brian Hodge went back to Melbourne. He probably did, but he works for a company, according to his LinkedIn. He works for a company that sets up events. I don't know, events all over the place, but he was in Vegas for something called a NetApp event, I guess, that he was setting up. And I believe his main office is out of Los Angeles. That's why I say I think he's from Los Angeles.
134 was registered to Paddock's girlfriend, Mary Lou Daniels, using her comps and not his for whatever reason.
Daniels.
You know, the one he wired $100,000 to and whose
Daniels.
fingerprints are on the bullets inside the magazine.
His girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley, you see her there, who claims no foreknowledge of the shooting spree, has admitted now that her fingerprints are probably on some of the ammo because, get this, she helped load the cartridges. I have other information on her, too. You're not going to want to miss that coming up.
Who, coincidentally, like Hodge, is also connected to the Gold Coast casinos in Australia. She shut down her
How's
Facebook
Hodge
almost
connected
immediately,
to
but
the
not before people
casinos?
spotted the ISIS beheading videos her friends were posting. Funny how Facebook can't get sex trafficking and snuff films off their platform, but they'll probably ban this video just for criticizing the narrative. LVPD also didn't think it was necessary to take witness statements from most of the other people on the floor that night. Kind of hard to come up with a motive when you're not investigating any possible leads as to why. Speaking of reports the LVPD didn't want us to see, Paddock had 19 guns at home. So why did he buy 23 more leading up to the shooting? Does the FBI really want us?
Whose graphs is she using? This is interesting.
To believe the majority of the shooting that everyone swears was automatic was done entirely by ARs with bump stocks that magically never jammed, as they're so notoriously known to do?
How does a bump stock compare to a standard rifle?
So basically, it's using opposite forces. Put your finger there, you pull forward, pulls the trigger, and the recoil sends it back. And then you pulling forward causes it to pull the trigger again, and the recoil sends it back. So it creates a bounce effect. But you have to get it just right, or else it's severely inaccurate.
Standard rifle on the right, bump stock on the left, 30-round magazine.
Oh, poor dog.
The bump fire malfunctioned on the first test. Here's the second.
It's severely unreliable, and I wouldn't waste my money on it. They can have it.
Don't get me started on how they supposedly know how many times each gun was fired, either. So they had the manpower to match ballistics on 1,000 casings, but not on the bullets that hit 58 people? And how do they know exactly what order the shots were and when they hit or missed the fuel tanks? Is there footage that shows that we don't know about? LVPD also states that Paddock used 15 different guns that night, 8 of which don't have scopes. Instead of, just reloading one of the guns that had a scope with any of the bajillion loaded magazines laying around. He really didn't think he needed a scope for this shot?
No.
Not bad for a 64-year-old man that, according to his...
Jesus, people. Come on. Get your shit together. That's not what it looks like when you're there. I mean, that perspective is horrible. This photo's not even taken from the same direction. This is taken from a fucking helicopter, it looks like. I mean, it could be a drone, but come on, man. This is fucking ridiculous. Gotta do better. Gotta do better. And that bump stock shit, yeah, whatever, dude.
Pilot license wasn't allowed to fly without corrective lenses. Could only hit the fuel tanks the size of a house 2 out of 8 times, though. Weird. Why does this feel like a gun sale gone bad?
Near vision. So he was nearsighted. It does look like a gun deal gone bad. I mean, I always said that. I always felt that, man. I kind of agree with her on that.
Why is the FBI protecting what could be the main accomplices to this crime? Why in less than 24 hours after the incident, and with overwhelming evidence to the contrary, were authorities so insanely insistent that there was only one shooter and he was dead?
Right now, we believe it's a sole actor, a lone wolf type actor.
Was a sole shooter. There is no further threat that we're aware of, no immediate threat.
I want to emphasize we believe Paddock is solely responsible for this heinous act.
Fuck Sisolak.
The quickness it was dropped from the media when they normally capitalize on tragedies like this for their own political gain tells me they were worried people would start connecting dots they shouldn't be and continuing to ask questions that authorities couldn't answer. At the end of the day, they shot at a pro-Second Amendment crowd full of country folk, veterans, and gun enthusiasts that I can tell by reading through these statements immediately recognize the sounds of multiple shooters and different calibers that don't match up with the single shooter narrative they're being force-fed by authorities.
Now, I don't agree with that. A lot of people I know were there that were not. Not everybody there was Republican. Let's put it that way. In fact, the majority of the people I know were definitely not.
They recognized that shots were coming from all around them, even with a blinking strobe light planted halfway up Mandalay Bay that weekend, confusing people as to where the shots were coming from. And man, wouldn't you like to know who put that there, considering that could have been a purposeful distraction?
It's not that blinking light now.
Never heard an explanation what that blinking light was.
Two shooters right there in that room.
These were good people, men shielding women from harm, civilians risking their lives to help strangers and assist law enforcement. At the end of the day, they didn't just give up and bow down to terrorism. They deserved to know what really happened that night. Las Vegas is one of the most surveilled cities in the entire country. So where is all the footage? Why are we stuck with such a half-ass, incomplete investigation with so many holes in it, one of the largest attacks in our history? This cannot be chalked up to pure incompetence or lack of resources. Something this poorly done has to be intentional. We've got Sheriff Lombardo nervously bumbling through press conferences, not even knowing the most basic facts of the case, and misleading the public for whatever reason on purpose by changing the timeline to either suit his poor reaction time or to benefit Mandalay Bay and their legal liability.
My attempt, like I stated earlier, is to give you the information as I know it, unverified, to calm the public, not to establish a legal case. Everybody understand that? No question, sir.
Wait, what? Did he just admit he's not trying to establish a legal case? Why don't you just come out and say you have no intentions on solving this? Why is his biggest concern calming the public? Wouldn't the public be more calm if we actually got some answers about this tragedy? And why does FBI agent Aaron Reeves creepily nod in agreement every time Lombardo lies or says something dumb? Why can't he answer any of the public's reasonable questions? Like who took Paddock's hard drive from the room? It certainly wasn't Paddock. He's dead on the floor. We know someone was actively monitoring the hallway, so was that what was on the stolen?
That's not necessarily true. You can't say that. The Google search for how to remove the hard drive, I believe, was on the 28th, if I remember right. It was 28th. He had plenty of time to get rid of that shit. It doesn't mean he fucking waited 3 days to do it or whatever. That's dumb.
Hard drive? Why was Paddock's house left unguarded and allowed to be broken into? Are we really supposed to believe the excuse that the police left it unlocked and the wind blew it open? Really?
Wow.
Why were officers told multiple times to turn their body cams off?
Eddie Schmitz, look at that. Look at you, homie. Colo 8 News. Now, how about, report on the house that Stephen Paddock owned in your neighborhood that was broken into? Are you kidding me? This home is under the largest investigation scope in the entire world. Yet it's broken into. Laugh my ass off. Fake news. Wow, they called Eddie Schmitz fake news. That's fucked up. He's actually right on this. The Reno Police Department reported the door had been left unlocked and the wind blew open the door. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? That's stupid. And that's what he says. How stupid do you think I am? Eddie Schmitz. All right. You made the big time, bro. You're on InfoWars. Congratulations, bro.
Off. Keep in mind, Sheriff Lombardo is not above lying to the public. He's the same guy who lied under oath about what really happened at the Bundy Ranch standoff, even though the whole thing was on camera. Federal corruption and Lombardo's perjury cost Clive Bundy 2 years of his life in jail. And that was after the feds tried extorting over $1 million from him in cattle grazing fees over land that wasn't even theirs. Then you've got Lombardo's friend, former Commissioner Steve Sisolak, who was not governor at the time, but capitalized on the massacre to get his face in front of the cameras to further his own political career, even going as far as to brand the Route 91 shooting generically as 1 October, which was specifically done to help make people forget it ever happened. It's a term only law enforcement and news channels really used, as most people outside the state won't even know what you're talking about unless you tell them you're specifically talking about the Las Vegas country concert shooting. Once he used the tragedy to become governor, Sisolak would go on to do a slew of mobby corrupt things, like put his good friend and campaign donor, the CEO of MGM himself, Jim Murren, in charge of the economy-destroying COVID task force, which is a whole other expose for another time. Jim Murren, if you don't know who he is a radical leftist that served on the National Infrastructure Advisory Council under Obama and donates to CARE, which has serious known ties to Islamic terrorism. Interesting. He also sold off 10 million of MGM stock 3 weeks before the shooting, and then MGM had to pay him $32 million to leave on top of that. So instead of getting punished for the extreme lack of security, he made out, but not before he laid off a ton of workers to pay for it. Under Murren, MGM also had the audacity to sue over 1,000 of their shooting victims and their families, claiming the casino wasn't liable, and then ripped the rest of them off by only having to give out a fraction of the expected settlement costs that MGM's insurance covered most of anyway, which I'm sure has nothing to do with the judge in the case also being the daughter of the current vice president of security of MGM at the time.
You are the only person that we know of at this point who's actually opted out of the lawsuit and fired your lawyer.
I went to my lawyer and said, can you tell me who the mediator is going to be? I didn't get a response. And I was doing research and I said, please tell me it's not Jennifer Tagliati. And he writes me back, he says, it is Jennifer Tagliati. I said, she's the one person that should never be around this case because her father is the VP of Security and Surveillance for MGMRI at the time of the event.
There's a lot to unravel here, so let's break it down.
Let's listen to a little bit more, but I don't have a lot of time left here.
Minute by minute, all the things they don't want you to know about the Las Vegas Route 91 shooting. According to LVPD's report on what was on Paddock's home computer, 3 months before the shooting, Paddock sent an email to himself about 3 random AR and bump stock sale ads. If you're thinking that doesn't make sense and that can't be all they found and why are they so obsessed with bump stocks, let me just get this out of the way right now. Nothing will make sense about the conclusions Lombardo and the FBI come up with about the shooting. According to SEC filings in August, George Soros bought $42 million worth of put options on MGM. That means he's betting their stocks will fall, and when he does, he'll make a killing. Because, hey, is it even really an evil conspiracy theory without George Soros somehow involved? Starting on September 10th in 2017, 3 cryptic messages from the same anonymous user pop up on Reddit foreseeing an upcoming planned false flag event in Vegas. He warns people to stay away from large crowds because the government is working on something called a high incident project to make the American public think places with security aren't safe enough and create more regulations requiring metal detectors in casinos, etc. He specifically states OSI and the Chertoff Group will be involved, although he's not certain of the exact date, but that Vegas is on their mind.
Which I never proved.
What's interesting is that Snopes scoffs at the messages as unproven, not because they couldn't prove they were false or true, but because they deemed it too vague to be taken seriously. Sounded pretty specific to me. If you don't know who Chertoff is, he's Bush's former Secretary of Homeland Security, where despite the major conflict of interest, he demanded agencies install certain security machines, which he just so happened to own the companies for. He's better known as a co-sponsor of the Patriot Act, where he used the tragedy of 9/11 to push through legislation that allowed the government to spy on Americans through our phones and computers without a warrant.
Now that's creepy.
If you're not familiar with Snowden, watch Citizen 4 for homework tonight, and you'll quickly understand how the deep state is able to blackmail and control everyone into oblivion.
All right. So I think I'm going to stop that there. And you guys go watch the rest if you want. Maybe I'll do the rest of it. But, you know, the thing with the, to my understanding, the 4chan post is, it was the wrong date, which doesn't really matter too much. It was kind of a scary post. The idea of them putting metal detectors in these casinos and hotels, they didn't really do that. I mean, the hotel security did not get beefed up from this very much. So I don't, you know, she's saying that there's no proof one way or the other. You're absolutely right, but you brought it up. So you're saying that this is somehow proof? You know, it doesn't mean much. The whole Snowden thing, I don't know. And I didn't know that, you know, Murren had these connections to whatever this CARE thing is. And, you know, I never really went into that. So that's new to me. But, you know, it's possible. The problem is the way this girl is doing things. It's hard for me to take everything seriously unless I can do my own, you know, research on it. And I honestly don't even want to deal with that, digging into some of these politicians and stuff like that. Yeah, the Jim Mirren thing, George Soros, that was always a problem. That was always a strange thing. But I don't know. Like I said, I'll probably watch the rest of this tonight. I not gonna do it here live right now. I don't have the time. Anyway, if you want to watch this whole thing for yourself, the link should be there. I think it's up there. Let me see if it made it. Yeah, it did. So I just wanted to point it out for everybody so you guys can go watch that thing. And, you know, that's about it. Anyways, everybody be safe out there and, yeah, have a good night. What's left of it.